Thank you for joining our October informational webinar, Opening Doors for People with Intellectual Disabilities to Attain Meaningful Credentials. My name is Drew Andrews. I am the Assistant Director and Technical Assistance Coordinator at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities at the University of Central Florida. This webinar is being recorded. Our presenters today are Dr. Lyman Dukes, a professor of special education in the College of Education at the University of South Florida, with 30 years of educational experience. He has served in higher education in a number of capacities, both academically and administratively. He has published and presented extensively on topics related to secondary and post-secondary education for students with disabilities. Mike Muldoon is the Assistant Director for the Eileen Hoffman-Haffer UMatter program at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg campus. Mike is the co-author of the STAR Person-Centered Planning Process, which is used at inclusive post-secondary education programs across the country. Dr. Jamie Jocelyn is the director of the Eileen Hoffman-Haffer UMatter program. And also we have today Caitlin Ruska, a graduate assistant working on her doctoral degree. Handouts for today's presentation can be downloaded from the chat section, which will be accessed by clicking the chat icon or the speech bubble at the bottom of the Zoom window. Closed captioning can be accessed at the bottom of the Zoom screen under live captioning. If you have difficulty hearing the presentation, phone numbers that can be used to call and join the audio via phone will, while following the slides online, will also be posted in the chat window. And at this time, we will begin our webinar. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you at this time.
All right, thank you, Drew. Good afternoon, everyone. Just quick, for those folks who've come in the last minute or so, putting a link in the chat. What we'd like you to do, you can watch the presentation through your Zoom window. You're going to see us click through. But if you would like to participate in the interactive activities, and we really hope you would, please go ahead and open a new browser window. Don't close this one, otherwise you'll disconnect. At nearpod.com, I put the link in the chat, and then enter the code that I put in the chat into the box for students. That'll take you to our live presentation. You'll see exactly the same thing that you're seeing, except it will also allow you to participate in those interactive activities. All right. So during today's webinar, and we're really excited to be here today and to share some information that we've learned over the last year. And what I will tell you right off the bat is that we're still learning. Every day we're still learning. And it's something that we hope to continue to gain more information from you guys as well. And so but today, after today's webinar, you're going to be able to identify industry recognized credentials, determine how to match the credentials that your program is offering with the employment needs of the surrounding community. We will also will be able to examine credentials of interest to determine the best credentials for your students and your institution of higher education. And then to develop relationships with businesses in the credential area to expand employment opportunities for your students, and to develop a plan for expanding meaningful credential offerings at your institution. So those are our goals for you today. And I'm going to turn it over right now to our PI, Dr. Lyman Dukes.
Thanks, Mike. Hi there, I'm Lyman, as Mike mentioned. You may want to jump back a slide there, Mike. As Mike mentioned, I'm Lyman, I'm a PI. I am fortunate to have a great team with whom to work. So first of all, I'd like to welcome the audience again, and then also begin by giving the UMatter program staff kudos for preparing this excellent presentation. on credentials that we're all about to see. And I do hope that the audience finds it as interesting as I did when I reviewed the presentation content. So kudos to the team. I'll begin by saying just a bit about our program based here at St. Petersburg. The St. Petersburg campus, which is a part of one USF, has about 6,000 total students with approximately 930 living on campus in the residential halls. Our program does have a residential component, and I can happily say that the students love living on campus. As it relates to today's presentation topic, they're pursuing a number of unique career pathways, and this has certainly influenced our thinking around credential developments. And then lastly, as you can see, we have a program namesake that is Miss Eileen Hoffman-Hafer. She is a retired Hillsborough County school teacher, and she and her husband, Andy, are active members of the UMatter board. And then Andy also leads our Business Advisory Council. And we'll likely reference the council at some point during today's session. Next slide. Great, thank you. So as you can see by the references we've noted in the slide, we rely upon data to drive our thinking about how to educate students about career opportunities in the local community. Certainly students are encouraged to choose a career path in which they have interest, but we do share information of this nature with them and explain to them why it should be a consideration when they're thinking about a career path as an adult. Additionally, we try to expose them to opportunities to learn more about these occupational areas while participating in our program. And then the last bullet here, I suspect that the occupational areas in which there are shortages in the Tampa Bay area are probably similar in many other areas in the state of Florida as well. Next slide. So potential program career pathways were initially identified based upon the current programs and the courses offered on the St. Petersburg campus of USF, because that is our home campus for this program. As you can see, an array of unique options are available, and these include everything from early childhood and elementary education to business to art. And because those noted may not be of interest to every student admitted to the program, we also have a customizable track that's an option as well. Students have taken courses in nearly every potential pathway and are participating in internships in some pathways as well. For example, we have students working in the local school system, in a couple of places in the hospitality industry, and then as well as in customer service with the Tampa Bay Rays, which of course is the local pro baseball team. It's worth noting that students have already earned a customer service credential, and we believe regardless of career path that the skills developed in that credential experience translate to almost all future work experiences. Next slide. So academic courses within the concentrations are intentionally selected with student input to provide vocational and academic depth to the entire student experience. And it's worth mentioning that we round out student academic experiences with courses that reflect a need to develop skills and abilities beyond those just focused on a career goal. So for example, students complete courses focused on college success and also health and sex education. And all the courses in which students participate are fully inclusive courses. One core philosophy, just go back for just a second. Great. One core philosophy we have is to provide students with career development and personal leadership opportunities. And we do that through a variety of on and off campus internships, as well as some other unique experiences. So for example, students have been interviewed by both a TV and magazine press. One student's also written a published article on the program recently. And soon, a number of students will be presenting at state and national conferences related to the program. Okay, next slide. So when students successfully finish, they will have participated in 5 semesters of coursework, with a number of those semesters including internship experiences. And they'll ultimately earn a non-credit certificate of completion issued by USF's Division of Innovative Education. And they'll also earn a variety of credentials like the one I just mentioned related to their selected career pathway. And we'll talk about those credentials later in the session.
So here comes the fun part. If you did open a separate browser, you get to do an activity. You get to fill in the blanks, and there's words down below that you can pick and drag and drop where you think they should go. And we'll give you a few minutes to try this out. And we use things like this with our students to reinforce whatever credentials they're working on, whatever job skills they're working on. And we do this through our topical workshop. So like UMatter intentionally selects academic courses. The leisure and hospitality ranks are the highest growth in employment, and then career development and personal leadership opportunities. So now we're going to move on to credentials to Caitlin.
All right, so while completing the UMatter program at USF, students earn various credentials to increase their employability skills and marketability. So next slide. So our goal is for our students to gain these 8 essential skills that employers are looking for when hiring new employees, which include career management, communications, critical thinking, global citizenship, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, and technology. So some of the specialized certificates include, but not limited to, the student's program of study. So for example, one of the specialized based on students' program of study in the area of hospitality would include workplace readiness, customer service, and serve safe. And obviously there's like endless opportunities based on the student's interest and career focus. So there is an initial focus on soft skills for students enrolled in the program. Soft skills are among the top skills employers seek in the candidates they hire because soft skills are important for just about every job. Soft skills are non-technical skills that relate to how you work, including organizational skills, interpersonal or people skills, communication skills, teamwork, problem-solving skills, and time management, and so forth. Employers may be more willing to promote employees that have strong soft skills. So while at UMatter, students complete the Conover Workplace Readiness. There's 3 different areas that they kind of focus on that have different branches. So the first one is the Job Readiness series, which is an 8-part series of workplace readiness. This credentialing system covers critical soft skills employers are looking for when assessing for potential job candidates. These 8-part skills are attitude, which is kind of where it all begins. It addresses the importance of having a positive attitude, keeping your focus, doing your best, responding to guidance or direction, controlling emotions, and being flexible. Communication is something that we often take for granted, but for students enrolled in the UMatter program, that's a skill that they need to continue to work on, especially their listening skills, verbal and nonverbal communication, emotional awareness, written communication, and communicating in different situations. Planning and organizing leads to success if given the proper amount of time and effort. So this skill sets talks about prioritizing time management, coordinating resources, creating system, being proactive by planning ahead. Critical thinking is an essential skill that all employers agree is critical for success in any workplace. This program covers gathering information, analyzing information, applying information, forming a hypothesis, problem solving, decision making. Interpersonal / social skills teaches users how to interact with other people and present themselves in an acceptable manner by covering the following topics. Interpersonal skills, so controlling your emotions, socializing at work, networking, responding to conflict, and helping customers. Teamwork is just not about sports, it's also about succeeding in the workplace. Topics include respecting others, active listening, being reliable, participating, communicating constructively, and solving problems. Professionalism teaches employees the highest standards of professionalism to live up to these standards, including following workplace rules and expectations, personal responsibility, workplace ethics, physical appearance, appropriate language, and minding your manners. And then media rules, teaching new, seldom taught guidelines on how to properly and safely use technology. This has been a very essential part of our topical workshops due to the vast use of technology with our cohorts. The second series is the job seeking series, which is a 6-part series on job seeking. This credentialing system includes key job seeking skills needed to find, apply, interview, and accept a job. A lot of times we will work with the USF's Career Center to kind of overlap these skills. So first is job search, about finding a job. So knowing what type of job you want, knowing what type of job you're qualified for, how to begin looking, networking, job ads, websites, and social media. Resumes. Teaches about resumes that get the job. So we go over resume overview, formatting, professionalism, the content, and submitting a resume. We also do job application, which covers the basics of applying for a job, getting an application, filling out the application, personal strengths, and references. Preparing for an interview. Covers the basics on how to prepare for an interview. Includes getting an interview, learning about the organization, learning about the job, preparing to answer questions, practicing answer questions, and preparing to ask for questions. Interviewing teaches the basic skills of properly conducting yourself in an interview. So your physical appearance, what to bring in an interview, interviewing etiquette, answering questions, asking questions, and how to wrap up an interview. And after the interview, teaches the post-interview things to do. So follow up, accepting a position, possibly quitting another job, and then facing rejection. The last one is the job keeping series. Job keeping series is a 3-part series on describing on maintaining employment. The credentialing system includes practical tips on how to effectively relate to customers, supervisors, and coworkers. Getting off to the right foot covers the basic of job keeping, includes meeting your manager, taking responsibility, following company rules and policies, staying positive, listening and following instructions, and starting fresh. Getting along in the workplace covers the basic interpersonal skills, building a relationship with your supervisor, getting along with your peers, talking to customers, practicing good social skills, balancing work and social life, and handling conflict. And then performance reviews teaches you how to handle performance reviews, including exceeding expectations, handling criticism, responding to compliments, using feedback to improve performance, evaluating your performance, and making continuous improvements.
So now this is what's called a collaboration board when we move into kind of working together, brainstorming. And as Caitlin was sharing about our workplace credential that our students earn, it's in alignment with the 8 job characteristics that employers are looking for. So real quickly in the box down here, you could enter what credentials and industry certifications does your program offer. So for example, the UMatter program, one of the certification credentials our students have earned is in customer service. So you can go ahead, type in your thought, and then move on. And if you have more than one, you can either put it in like one sticky note or you can do multiple entries. I see National Retail Federation, excellent. Safe Serve, wonderful. Hospitality credential through the American Hotel Lodging Educational Institute. Another one for the National Retail Federation. Some programs don't have any at this time, which is why we're here to learn from each other. And when you're looking at building a program, sessions like this is the best place to gain information. And another thing is students can respond to each other. It's like, oh, Safe Serve. That's a great idea. So it's just nice that it's a way for people to work together and build collaboration. And we're going to move on. And I turn it back over to Mike.
Thank you. All right, so Caitlin was talking a little bit about the Conover workplace readiness program that we're using. So we started that program as a self-paced program as part of the independent work that students do on a weekly basis. And in some ways it was great. Students, just like anybody who's working on a self-paced course, you do it when your schedule allows. If you're really into it, you can spend more time. If it's you've got some things that are distracting you, you can put it away for a little bit and come back to it. But we noticed that that it might not be always the best model for our students that we have right now. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So we really had a lot of kind of ongoing conversations with credentials about whether or not we want to go with teacher-led models, credentials that are led by a teacher, and then or we want to use the self-paced program. So we found that our students didn't necessarily do as well on the self-paced program, the Conover program. They finished the lesson, but they did not score high enough on the post-test for the different sections to earn the actual credential. So from a content standpoint, they had exposure to it, but they were not really incorporating that information. So we kind of shifted. We talked about it over the summer, and we started this year where we're doing a teacher-led model, utilizing the same materials, but we're going through, and it allows us to have a better grasp of what our students are understanding, to have conversations, to ask our students to make to make decisions about the information they're hearing, to provide explanation for why they think it's one way as opposed to another way. So there's those critical thinking skills that we're building with our students. So for us, kind of this hybrid approach where part of it's online, part of it's in person, is really what's been working best for us. We may find that in other situations, as we get different students, that that the self-paced model would work. So all I would say for programs who are still looking at this and expanding what they're offering, or just trying to decide, is that you remain flexible with that. So we have, we talked earlier about our connections to the community and to our board. We do have, in addition to our regular advisory board, we have a business advisory council. The business advisory council, while there is a little bit of overlap there, it's really a separate group of folks. We do meet with them quarterly. We just had our most recent meeting a couple of weeks ago. And the council consists of local leaders, local business leaders, USF faculty, and alumni. And they are committed to helping our students find jobs in the community after they complete the UMatter program. We are really very excited. We're going to be doing some job exploration trips. Students have signed up recently to go visit a number of the businesses that are represented on our board. It's really kind of a job, really just job exploration. I think that Lyman talked earlier about that we have students right now who are looking at that hospitality area, customer service, also education, and they kind of get set in that. And we want to make sure that we're giving them opportunities to explore other businesses. So we have these ongoing partnerships, not only with our board members, but then also with other community employers, other employers in our community. Some of those include the McDonald Training Center, which is based out of Tampa. They provided us with a Disney customer service credential over the summer for our first cohort. And again, we talked about that, very much focused on those soft skills, right? Those are going to apply no matter where you are, what job you're in, you're almost certainly interacting with somebody. And so those customer service skills are really important. We have students who are currently completing an internship with the Tampa Bay Rays, students with Pinellas County Schools, and the Vinoy Resort and Golf Club. And of course, we partner with our friends at Vocational Rehabilitation. They're really great to work with, and we'll provide those ongoing support after our students leave the program as well. So I mentioned this earlier too, we are still learning. This is absolutely an evolving process. We have really tailored what we're offering right now to our current student interests. So we are, highly focused on those soft skills, the customer service pieces. We have one student who's kind of on that slide that Caitlin showed earlier, where it had the 3 bubbles. We have a student who is very much interested in becoming a sailing coach. And so over the summer, he worked on and earned a credential in sailing. We're hoping that at some time during the year, we can get a job for him on campus as a sailing instructor. USF St. Petersburg is right on the water, and they have a waterfront that is attached to the university. You can rent sailboats and off you go out into the bay. So it's really a kind of a neat opportunity for him to take this skill that he has and this love that he has and actually use it right here where he's going to school. So those are, we try to be really flexible in what we're offering to meet the needs of those students. We don't want to spend a lot of time offering credentials for areas that are not appropriate for the student's interests, but we will adjust as those interests, develop and change as we get new students. This past summer, we were really fortunate. We were able to hire a graduate assistant to help us look in more detail at credentials. There's tons of information out there. We really wanted to just kind of gather more because it's something that it's not like you can just click on one particular web link and find everything you need to know. So it was really helpful for us to have the graduate assistant to assist us with that process. And then we're in the early stages, so I don't really know if we have a ton of information to share about this, of exploring the possibility of creating some of our own credentials through the university's innovative education department. They have been very supportive. I think that they will help us to fine tune what this looks like. Jamie mentioned earlier that we have what we call a topical workshop. So we meet on an ongoing basis with our students to talk about things that are really critical. So we're using some of that to develop those workplace readiness skills. There's other things that we want to do. And we know that students are also learning and applying things that they're learning in their class, learning things in their classes and applying them in their real lives. And so we want to give them credit for that and show those great skills that they're developing.
Right. So exactly what Mike said. So we're working with the innovation department to create micro badges that will represent courses that students have taken. So it's a way to document, like if a student's interested in education and they took intro to teaching, so now they'll receive a micro badge that states that they took intro to teaching through USF and UMatter. And so we're working on creating all these various badges for every course that our students have taken. And so it's really, it'll make our students stand out. The students will stand out when they present their resumes, and the students will have kind of a little more swag when they have their electronic portfolios.
All right, and so this slide here is really just some of the conversations that we have. And I'm hoping that it will help you as you're, especially for those folks who put into the last slide that they don't have any credential programs yet. Right? So these are just some of the questions that we've talked about here. So what's required to earn the credential? Is it teacher-led or self-paced? If the instruction is teacher-led, who delivers that? Does your program staff have to be trained in that and then deliver that, or is an outside entity responsible for delivering that? How long do students have to complete the credentials? Some it's within a set time frame. Others it's really open. What's the cost? If the student needs to retake the assessment, is there an additional cost? Some offer many, endless numbers of opportunities to take it. Some it's one or two, right? So that's an important thing. Are accommodations available? And if so, how are they accessed? And then, how will graduates share their credentials with employers? We've been talking a lot about, as Jamie just mentioned, an electronic portfolio. But I know that some folks use their badges and their credentials. They'll put those in LinkedIn. That's something that is available as well. We just want something that the students can take with them. We're a Microsoft university, so that's everything is Microsoft based, but we're locked down. You cannot share information like that outside of our university. So it's not helpful for them once they step away from the program. And so that's why we're looking for ways to easily share the information that they have.
So this is called just an open-ended question, and people can type in the response. So students share their credentials they earn by, so for the programs where their students do earn credentials, how do those students communicate that they have this credential to their employers? I mean, do they take their certificate and go say, hey, here's my ServSafe certificate, or do they present their card, or do they just put it on their resume? So this is just a way for to generate ideas, also to get feedback from people. And the nice thing is this is the student view, and then here's the teacher view. So then once there's quite a few responses, then you get to see bring certificates in a portfolio and state it on their resume. Some people have a digital portfolio, which is very useful. And actually, that's the avenue that we're going to be going, is that our students will have a digital portfolio that they will take with them. And then as far as resources, we all need resources. And so when we were talking about certifications and credentials and what have we looked into, what direction are we going in? We spoke about Conover Online, and that helps with being prepared to be employed, and career management, and keeping your job searching, and having the soft skills. This is an example of the customer service credential that our students have earned over the summer. During the collaboration board that was stated earlier, the National Retail Foundation, Rise Up, those have various credentials that are available in retail and sales and retail management. And then here's an example of the sailing credential that our student earned over the summer. He earned it in safe sport. He also earned it in small boat instructor level 1, small boat instructor level 1 online course completion, and then teaching and coaching fundamentals online. So that's another credential. And again, this kind of shows how we tailor it to what our students are, what the UMatter students are interested in, and what career path they are going to go on. Also, Florida Ready to Work has credentials that are available, and I'm pretty sure those are free, which is nice because other ones you have to pay money for. And it's just nice to know what all your options are, especially as Mike went over the what to consider options. We do find it that it's better to do a teacher-led lesson with the credentials, because then we're there to support our support the students, and also or have the students work with their academic mentor on their credentials and what pieces they're working on. Are there any questions? There are some in the chat. Can you please repost the link? Do any state programs cover fees for credentials? I would look in, as far as any state programs covering fees for credentials, if you're partnering with VR, I would really look into your VR representative and communicate with them and see what support they can give with credentials, especially if it's on the student's individual employment plan. They may be able to help support any fees for credentialing.
Jamie, just to add to that, you know, each student receives a $7,000 scholarship, and some of those scholarship dollars could be used by students. I mean, those are state dollars that are coming to students, and students can use those for different certification costs also. So that's another way that students have dollars.
And in addition to that, we have some programs who, because the scholarship dollars run out, that they have that opportunity in their grants for the FPCTP grants. So they make allowance to cover those fees for students in their grants as well. So yeah, you have a couple of opportunities.
Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Janice. We currently have 12 students enrolled in our program. 6 students just started in August of this year, and the other 6 started last year. So we do have our first graduating class coming up in the spring. Here's another question. What university courses have aligned with the content needed to pass any credentials? Please share the credential and the courses. So with the customer service credential that our students were working on, a lot of it overlapped with the Conover credential as far as getting that information. The Conover goes more in depth with the soft skills when you're talking about employability skills versus the customer service skills. And so as far as our course content, our courses we look at our courses for enrichment in whatever career area the students are interested in. So we've had students that, if they're in the education field, they've taken intro to teaching, literature, literacy, and social studies, science for all students. And then some of our business students have taken basic marketing, personal finance, computers and business. And so that's why we're also looking at that micro badging, because we're trying to find a way to tie everything together. Is the Conover workplace readiness software taught as a group, or is it self-paced instruction? It could be both. we tried to do, there is a component that we've done as self-paced where they're doing more of kind of like a job survey, a job interest, career interest inventory. So that they did self-pace. And then as far as the Conover working on the credentialing piece, some students started that independently and we found out they needed more support. And so that we brought it into a group situation so we can ensure that they're taking their time, understanding the questions so they can earn that credential. Is your early childhood program the 35-hour DCF certification to work in childcare centers? No, not at this time, because USF, right now we're focusing more on the elementary education, but the early years. So the early childhood would include the pre-K and the kindergarten piece. Keep the questions coming.
Yeah. Someone asked about the slides, and I wanted to let all of the participants know that if you registered for this webinar, you will receive an email that will have the handouts. It will also have a link to the evaluation, as well as an evaluation link will be placed in the chat window here at the end of the webinar. So you will receive a link, and it has been recorded, and you will receive a link to that recording on our YouTube channel. I wanted to just mention those things to everyone.
Amy, can I jump in to look at Margot's question? So Margot is saying that, you know, that they're having a hard time finding an easy way to identify inclusive university courses that align with other credentials. And I think that I can understand why that would be an issue. And that's why we've started to have some conversations with the university about how we can partner together to develop some badges for students to earn through their coursework that they're taking at the university. Because our students are auditing their classes, there's maybe not a direct way for them to say, oh, you've accomplished X, Y, or Z in that course, you know, as a student who's earning a credit for that course might, but it's through the badging process, I think that we'll be able to find those skills in each course for students to really take away from that process.
So we also have a question, are the courses for credentials online, live, or both? I would say both. I mean, the actual course component is online and we do it as a whole group, but we've had times where students need to jump in through teams. So then they're participating virtually. And again, I'm just speaking about the Conover one and the Disney one. They had to be in person for the customer service credential. So
another question asked, what courses are linked to your leadership certificate? Have we discussed that one yet?
no, so what course? So we have University Success would be one of them, and then other leadership courses. We start more of like a liberal arts kind of view for that. We're working on whatever skills the students need. And then we do have student leadership as a course. It's an actual USF course. And there's another one that is available, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But if I'm going to just click over to our information that's on the slide. So if you want to reach out to us, if you have an additional question, feel free to do that. I can get you the name of that course after this. Dennis asked, is there a certain number of courses in the early childhood education that the student will take to earn that credential? They have to do so many hours online and while they're working. And so we're working on the logistics of the early childhood certification piece at this moment, and looking at building partnerships with preschools. So that's kind of in the works. We've been focusing mostly on the education piece and the academic enrichment with the lower elementary school grades. What is the total credit hours earned for the receipt of a non-credit certificate? So in order to earn a UMatter certificate, the students would be completing about 27 credits minimum in order to receive their certificate of completion from the UMatter program. Oh, Manatee County, we're glad you're here. If you have any questions, always feel free to reach out.
And then Dr. Lindsay asked how many credits are typical for a credential. I think that that's going to vary by credential. I'm not sure that there's a kind of like a set answer for that. So a credential like ServSafe would be much quicker and shorter than some other ones. And so I don't know that you could really pay, say what a specific number for that. I think it's just going to depend on the credential.
Yes. Here's a question. How many hours are tied to a credit? So basically, one of the college courses is usually about 3 credit hours is what usually our students are enrolled in. And in the fall and spring, they audit 2 USF courses, which would be a total of 6 credit hours. And then in the summer, they audit 1 course for a total of 3. I will say the fall of last year, we did have a student that did take a 4 credit course. So again, it depends on what the student's interest is and what courses are offered.
And we're also having, we're meeting through our topical workshop for an additional 2 hours per week. So in addition to their USF courses, so they've got about 8 hours of courses that they're taking in an individual week.
I do want to add, related to the question about typical hour, a number of hours for a credential. Other institutions have range, just as Mike said. It depends on the credential that's being offered. Mm-hmm. Some are 150 hours, others go up to 1,200 hours. It just depends on what your institution decides. As you start looking at the potential credentials available, they range in numbers. So some are very short, some take a couple years for our students to finish.
I also want to share with folks that, there's more information about credentials in our annual reports, and the one that we're just completing for this past year will soon be up on our website. But on our website, which is fcsua.org, if you go to About Us and scroll to the bottom of that page, you find all of our annual reports, and there are multiple appendices, and one of those is focused on credentials earned by students, and you can see the wide range of credentials that are offered throughout Florida universities, state colleges, and technical colleges.
And Dennis asked the question, so students are auditing courses. Are faculty providing accommodations, modifications, or both to those curriculum? So the faculty can provide some accommodations, like whether it's notes in advance, anything that is provided to any student with accommodations, the faculty will provide. The modifications part, that comes out of the UMatter office. And so Mike and I have worked on modifying exams, quizzes, assignments, projects.
Yeah, and then Dr. Lindsay was saying that it sounds like credits for audited USF classes are applied to UMatter. So yes, so the university students do not earn official credit for those, but through our program, in order to earn the certificate, we will count those courses. So that, yes, through the UMatter program, they earn those credits towards their certificate. And then, you know, the flip side to that is that those courses, we're looking at ways to turn those into badges too, to indicate that, you know, students have learned certain things that can move them forward in their career goals.
Any other questions?
I want to make a point because there for a little bit there the chat was popping and it was hard to see everything. But Carrie Morse chatted, you know, that there was, if you look at the DOE, the Florida DOE CTE program, that it's a great way to look into other ideas for credential programs. I thought that was a great little tip, you know, especially if your program is looking to develop additional credentials. So I wanted to make sure that I saw it because it went by fast, and I don't know if anybody else saw it.
Thank you, Mike. Well, thank you so much to the USF team, to Lyman, Jamie, Mike, and Caitlin. What a wonderful webinar. We really appreciate the information that you've shared today on credentials and on the UMatter program at USF St. Pete. Thank you so much. I do want to remind folks that we have a webinar every month on the first Tuesday at 3 p.m. And information will be going out soon about our webinar for next month. Please take a moment, and in the chat, you'll see a link to the evaluation. And we always appreciate your feedback on our webinars, just to let us know what we can do, to let us know what topics you're interested in, and to make sure that they're meeting the needs of those folks that are joining us. And thank you all for taking the time to join us today. And so we're going to stay here on the webinar for just a few minutes and leave it open just so you can complete that evaluation. And we appreciate you taking the time to do so. Janice, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
No, great presentation, great information. Thanks for the interactive opportunities and to keep people thinking about what's going on and keep them engaged. But more importantly, I really appreciate you sharing the importance of the students' interests and how you have thought about that, along with what are the employment needs in your area to carve out what's unique for USF. And for those of you who do not have a program, that is how all of our programs are. They look at what is unique to their areas, and among the many credentials in which anyone could choose, they carve out those that would be most appropriate and a good fit for their institution. So you can do the same if you don't have a program already. So it was very, very good presentation, really enjoyed it. And obviously you had a lot of great questions, but people had evidence of some of the other credentials that you didn't have in your interactive board activities, so they can see what else is out there. Like Drew mentioned, when our annual report is available, you'll see the credentials in which students were enrolled this year. We have over 330 credentials in our institutions across the state, but all of those are not in that annual report because that would be the whole annual report. But it's pretty impressive when you do get a chance to see it, and hopefully that'll be up before the end of this week. But thank you, USF UMatter. We really appreciate it. Great presentation.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yeah.